Hi, everybody. My name is Representative Rita Harris. I represent House District 44 in the Florida House. And for those that don't know, House District 44 is most of South Orange County, going from Lake Nona all the way across to Dr. Phillips. And this is in session where we try to go, beyond the politics and talk to people about what they're experiencing and how legislation and what is going on, especially up in Tallahassee, is interacting with their lives. And today I'm really excited because I am not only talking to a constituent, but I'm also talking to a friend. And I've known Catherine for many years. We met, I believe, back in 2020, doing all sorts of things for the Biden campaign. Maybe even before that, we were out there. I know. I'm really trying to work hard to get good people elected. And then Catherine became a member of the Democratic Women's Club of South Orange County. And I'm going to read a little bit about Catherine. Catherine is a health educator and exercise specialist. And Catherine, I didn't know you grew up in Florida and you moved back about 8 years ago. You've been married for 30 years. Me too, it's 30-year club. You're a mom to two adult Gen Z kids who are amazing, and I've gotten to meet both of them. You're a proud grandma to a beautiful rescue pitty and co-founder of Connect Brain Training and program coordinator for the YMCA Memory Institute, and that's really important work. I'm currently serving on the Orange County Advisory Board for the Commission on Aging. Catherine, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I appreciate your time. So I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself and your family in your own words.
Okay. So as I said, I grew up in Florida. We lived in Nashville for about 22 years, where we tried to make it work in the music industry with my husband, but he ended up getting a quote unquote real job. And we decided that why stay somewhere that's so cold and so I'm a Florida person, and so is he. So we came back here. And he, shortly after we came back, he lost the job he had because it was just a short term contract. And so we had taken that risk. So we had a short amount of time. Well, it wasn't short, it felt like forever, 6 months, where he was trying to find another job here. And it was terrifying, especially when you picked up and brought yourself and your kids to a place that is a big adjustment to begin with. So fortunately he found something. He's got a good job now. We are, I wouldn't consider ourselves to be struggling financially by any means, but we're also not living large, as you could say. I mean, I guess it's all subjective, but I have worked part-time since my kids were tiny babies, and uh, most recently, now that they're a little older, I guess grown, college aged and above, I've picked up my work and kind of stepped into a different area of work. But it's still part time, but also in co-founding a company. It's making my schedule, as a lot of people know who do uh, self-employed business. There's a lot of work that's not on the clock. So, but I enjoy it. So that's kind of me. I'm a bargain shopper from all time. I grew up in a family where we didn't have a lot of money. My dad was a pastor, and my mom tried to stay home, but she had to work various jobs to help make ends meet. And so I know the value of being tight on a budget and bargain shopping, coupon shopping, doubling up sales. My mom, to this day in her 70s, she still called me. There's a coupon plus a sale plus a, and I'm like, I got that. That is that is me. In fact, my husband, sometimes he gets irritated when he'll say, oh, that's really cute shoes or something. I'm like, ooh, $5. I got him. He's you don't need to brag about how cheap you are, but I do.
I do that all the time. I know people hate to give me a compliment because they're going to hear which thrift store I got
Right?
any particular item from. And I've gotten to see you in action at work, and it really is important that the work that you're doing. And so I love that you do that. And I also love that you touch upon the fact that like you are like so many people, especially in our district, but I think, all over the country where you are not someone who you would consider yourself struggling, but you are definitely somebody who has to be conscious and aware of
Right.
where you're spending your money. And I feel like there are so many people that fall into that sort of gap. And I feel like what's happening right now is really putting a lot of pressure on those families because a lot of times families like yours may not qualify for a lot of the, wraparound services, but
Sure.
you're still feeling the pinch. And so I want you to kind of go into like what a typical week looks like for you, especially when it comes to like money and how you spend money and where your money goes.
Yeah, sure. So I think you characterized it perfectly. I'm just very conscious about it. And the reason that I am in the past year or so have become increasingly conscious is because and you know this better than I do, there are so many people around me who are in a really precarious position.
Mhm.
So the just in the way that I live my life, even if I had extra money to burn, it doesn't feel comfortable or prudent to kind of be out and living in that way when things are so precarious. And I'm extremely aware that uh, jobs can disappear and then your health insurance disappears and everything that sort of goes with that. So I'm probably more hyper aware of that than the average person. Maybe not, but it's heavy on my mind. So I never think, oh, everything's fine. I always think what could happen, and also who might I need to help, and I just want to leap the margins a little wider. So it becomes super frustrating when I go to, random grocery stores. I've been to all of them and, tried to figure out what's the best deal, how do I get the things that I need, and how do I, jump around, and it takes up a lot of my time. And there was a point in time where I had decided I'm just going to work more. We've got the money. I'm going to go and just, do the easy thing, and I'm going to just buy what I need and not worry about it, to an extent. And I don't feel that way now. And I wish I would rather feel that way where you kind of think, oh, you know what? It's not a big deal. I can just go pay double for that at Publix because it's convenient. So it's irritating. And I had this conversation with my son yesterday, but I talk about this. If you were in my house, I'm always complaining when I come back from the grocery store because I read the receipts and I am the BOGO shopper and the sale shopper. And I know now explicitly that things are double, triple what they used to be. And I mean, I'm talking about in a year or two, not, oh, back in 10 years ago. I mean, it happened fast. And it's very frustrating to me because to me it feels needless. It's one thing to say inflation is a thing. I get it. But I know because I'm also very plugged in and I read and understand what's going on in the country. I know things that have happened that have made these things more problematic. And so it adds a layer of frustration to me in that it's not just, oh, things are more expensive because, with COVID, we had to shut things down and you had an understanding of this is what we've got to do to get through it. This
Right. Right.
feels completely like a gut punch of stupidity to me. So, not to get too,
Well, it feels like it is definitely unforced errors, right?
that's
That we're
the
all
word.
dealing with,
That's
right?
the right word.
Yeah, like you said, like with COVID, it was something that, like you said, the whole globe was sort of dealing with, and it was, something we were kind of grappling with. But this does feel like it is it is something that is, an unforced error. And I can tell you, like for myself as well, I noticed how much groceries have gone up too. I used to not read the receipts as much, but I definitely do now because I have seen how much they've increased. And also gas. Like I do have a Costco membership card, but I wouldn't always fill up at Costco because it wouldn't always be convenient for me to,
Right.
there's only a few in town and you're on the go and everything. But I have in the last few weeks made a very conscious effort to make sure I'm going past a Costco when I need gas so that I can stop in. And I'm wondering, food, is that the biggest increase for you, or have you seen gas or other expenses that have just, you're like, okay, these are really the biggest things that have increased for our family?
So food is probably the most because I've got a 20-year-old son that lives with me, and so he keeps
Right.
he keeps us filling up with the groceries. But I additionally am noticing extreme. It's really distressing to me things like shampoo and toothpaste and those type of things that. I've never bought high end in those, but I've always had, a favorite brand that's, a little bit higher. And now I just almost like I can't fathom how much the price has gone up, but not even that it doesn't go on sale anymore. I used to see, okay, the price is high, but it'll be on sale in a couple of weeks. I'll grab some extra. And what I'm noticing now is that. So it's all of these things are compounding. The gas to me is it's really problematic. I am I don't really know like and again unforced error is the right word for this. Uh, I am an environmentalist at heart, and so I feel like conserving gas is the right thing, and I've always argued with my kids that
Right.
gas should be expensive because I don't want us to be reckless and careless with it. But again, going back to unforced error, this is not gas is expensive so that we can conserve. This was just gas is expensive because, and I think about people who live way closer to the margins that I do. And I know for a time, my daughter who lives on her own and she is trying to maintain really high rent, even though she's outside of Orlando, take care of a dog. And she had been out of a job for a little while, desperately trying to find something. Nothing, nothing, nothing. She began doing DoorDash, which was like not what we wanted her to do. And it turned out that she made barely anything at it. So anybody who glamorizes DoorDash again is out of their mind. The toll
Right.
it took on her car and then the cost of gas with that is it's untenable. And but that was her fallback plan was, well, while I can't get a job, I'll do DoorDash. And it turned out that that was a terrible strategy. The money to be made in that is abysmal, and my heart breaks for anybody who is trying to survive on that. It's I know firsthand that it's not this glamorous side gig where you can just rake in some cash. It's tough. So um, yeah, I think a lot of my concerns come from worrying about my kids and what's out there for them. My son is graduating in a couple of weeks from UCF, and I wouldn't say I'm worried, but I am, I don't feel great about the prospects, and that troubles me. And it also makes me think, I'm spending all this, I need to be saving.
I like everything you're saying, I'm relating to, and I think we need to have our kids on the next podcast because, my daughter, she is also in that Gen Z age bracket and dealing with, the cost of rent, which is exceptionally high, and she's in Davenport. So for those who don't know, Davenport is outside of the Orlando area and is considered cheaper, but she's still paying quite a bit of money for her rent. And just the worry, fortunate she has a job, but the worry that her friends, the stress that her friends are under, so many of them are college graduates and they're all looking for work.
Yep.
um, and I think as parents, like you're right, that is another worry that is on our shoulders because we want to be in a space where we can help them if they need it, but we're also feeling squeezed by everything as
Yeah.
well. And I just as a side note, so because I went to your son, I was at your son's graduation. I cannot believe that he's
Yeah.
graduating from UCF. Like, what? That is
I
crazy.
know. He
Where
did
does
it really fast. A lot of AP classes. So he's a young graduate, but I'm super proud. And he has kept that card that you gave him from his graduation in his room up on his bulletin board. So I you make a big impact on people, and I just want to say my kids really love you and admire you, and just thank you for that.
well, Well, I'm really proud of him. I'm really, really proud of him. I know it takes a lot of work and dedication to graduate early. It's not easy. And so that's amazing. Kudos to him. And it's a testament to you too, Catherine, and just you and your husband and what you have done to really, make sure that your kids are getting the best that they can. And I know that makes everything that's happening even more frustrating, because you know
Yeah.
that you've told them like do this and do this and do that, and then you will have opportunities, and now here you're watching them do all the things that you
Yes.
said that they should do, and they're struggling, and you yourself are also having to look at things differently when it comes to your money, when we're both at an age where we really shouldn't. We should be a lot more comfortable than we both are. And that makes me wonder, like, have you had to cut back on anything in order to sort of make up? Are there things that you and your family don't do as often? Are there things that you've cut out because of the fact that you're feeling this pinch so much?
Sure. And I won't, play a violin for our sad story. I mean, we're fine, but I'm not comfortable getting any closer to the margins just because of what I know and what could happen. I will say my mood has changed, and this is just the truth. When Biden and Harris were in office, I felt incredibly optimistic. And again, I follow economics, I follow things like that, so I'm educated in it. I don't, just grab stuff off of TikTok. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I felt very optimistic, and I am just super disheartened that we're in this place that we didn't need to be. And so I carry a lot of frustration about it, because I did feel optimistic. I felt really good. I felt good about my kids' prospects. I felt good about social safety nets. That was, to me, the social safety net is a really big deal, because even if I don't need it, for me to know that somebody, I'm working with someone now who is struggling financially, and I can't help them by myself. And so I'm looking for, where can I send them to get help? And when I just kind of survey what's going on in Orlando, I see every organization is saying we're strapped, we're tight, the gas prices, the grocery prices. So it feels like something that was doable is now becoming such a burden. And again, like, it's one thing for me to not be able to get the shampoo I want to get, maybe, or I'm rationing it, but for somebody who's sleeping in their car, or missing their medications. So for me, it's more of a sense of, okay, well, I might want to do something for fun, and I'm going to think twice about it. So I think that where my husband and I may not be, we're not contributing to the economy in ways that we might have if we felt confident. So I'd say that's where we are. We're not in, oh, poor us, we're struggling. But the that extra income that could, that we might be like, oh, let's go do this, or let's go do that, or maybe I will get a manicure or whatever. Those are things that I'm not putting in the economy because I don't feel comfortable, I don't feel confident and good. We're holding off on any kind of remodeling or things that we might have done in the past, just that kind of thing. So no sad story there, but it just troubles me that there are people that are they're genuinely struggling. And so I think it's just a snowball of consequences.
Yeah. And it's important though to, like, I get it. I understand that, like, because I'm much like yourself. We are not in a situation, my husband and I are not in a situation where we're struggling, but I think you touched upon really something that's very important. And that's acknowledging that when you're in the space that we're in and you do have some disposable income, and now you're making different choices with that because you are worried about your finances or things are more expensive, it does have an impact on the
Yeah.
community as a whole. And so, it does have an impact on people who rely on, someone going to get a pedicure, people who rely on, where my husband and I have cut down a lot is going out to eat. We don't go out to eat as often as we used to. And and one of the things I try to do is, go to restaurants that are small, mom and pop restaurants that are, family owned restaurants, so we can support local, and we don't go out to eat as much, which means that they're not getting the money. And then it is also having an impact on these programs as well, because a lot of people like yourself will donate to organizations, they'll give $25 a month to this organization, Matthew's Hope, or places that really have those wraparound services. And that's not happening as much. A lot of these organizations are seeing donors pull back because, they're watching their own, financial situation a little bit more closely. And, they're not giving as much, or they've cut down. Maybe they did a $50 donation and now they've cut down to 25 to kind of save a little bit of money. And then also with the lower tax, with us not spending as much, that means lower tax since we rely so much on sales tax. And so, that is also impacting what the county has to help. And I have spoken to some of the commissioners who have said exactly what you said, that a lot of these county programs that are meant to sort of be, a little bit of that, cushioning for people
Yeah.
are strapped, they're struggling. And so all around. So that's why I think this discussion is really important, because there are so many families like yourself who are like, well, I'm okay. And you are, I get that. But like, it's still the impact that this is having on our entire economy is just won't be understood for like decades later when people go back and look at it and see like what this whole thing is doing. The impact that this is having, not just on your family as you make, as you kind of navigate trying to make choices, but also what it means when you make those choices, what it means for the larger economic impact of the area. Because you are like so many other families out there, we're so many of us are making these decisions that we shouldn't have to. And I know this next question might seem silly because I know I am your elected representative, but I really do think it's important because even as an elected representative, I don't always hear everything. And so I want to hear what you think. I want to hear like what community thinks when they hear elected officials talking about the economy. Does it feel like, myself included, does it feel like we understand?
Yeah, so I'm super lucky. I've got you as a representative, and I don't take that for granted because I know that not everybody does. I think that a lot of people don't know how accessible it is, and so I'm one of your biggest advocates to say, and I think the trope, and I probably well earned by some people, but that all politicians are bad and everything is corrupt is so troubling to me because it tells me so we've all just given up and we're just gonna not do anything about it. And so that mindset is hard to contend with. I think just in general what I hear in the public, I hear a lot of complaining about paying taxes, and I get that, but I think that we don't maybe, and I try to always bring up the taxes are helping to educate our kids. And so I think maybe people not feeling or not connecting the confidence between kind of what they're putting in to the government and just it's just they're kind of letting it like, oh well, everybody's corrupt, who cares, there's nothing to do about it. And hopefully, I can just get my taxes lower and care about myself, and that's fine. And that's, so I guess in answering your question, don't I don't see the people in my community understanding that they are being represented, and that's probably it's a product of a lot of politicians who haven't genuinely represented. I mean, we've got a representative here in Dr. Phillips that it would be like spitting into the abyss of outer space to get any kind of response. So I understand you're unique, um, and so I say more Ritas, more Maxwell Frosts, more Anna Escamanis. I mean, that's kind of, so I don't know if that answered that properly.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it's really because, and I hear this too, and I know we both hear it a lot from people that I think it's really hard for people to understand there's more to who represents them than the president. And, that is partly because that is what garners like the most media attention when there's obviously when there's elections, it's very much focused on, the presidential, and then, most of the news, it's national news and things like that are all about the president. And so it's hard for people to understand that they're very, local representatives are more accessible to them, and that they can have huge impacts, and those are really the ones that maybe they should really focus on especially voting for and getting to know, because
Yeah.
they're going to have impact, they're going to have an impact on you, especially like county commission and things like that. Like these people have a very unique impact on you, and so it's really important that you know who they are, that you look them up, that you get to know them, and that you reach out to them, right? And if they're not responding, then that's a decision, like the next time they're up for reelection, if this is somebody who's not responsive to their community, this is maybe somebody that should not be in service anymore. So I totally understand that, and I think that's part of what I think what we try to do, especially it's one of the reasons I wanted to do the podcast, is to let people know that there's so much more up and down the ballot, and that like these decisions that happen are really important. And I know it feels so, it feels like so many people are so disgusted, right? Because they just see all this fighting all the time. Everyone's always fighting, and in politics, they're fighting too. And I think that people are just like, I don't want to hear it anymore. But I do try to impart on people that like we're out here, we really are trying to make find solutions for real problems. And of course, I try to explain the whole breakdown of our legislative situation up in Tallahassee, where we're very outnumbered, but we still try. And I appreciate constituents like you, Catherine, because I know it's difficult to stay engaged, and I know you have a lot on your plate as well. But yet you stay engaged. And that's really important too. It's really hard for people to stay engaged, and you have to make a real effort and dedication to look and see what's happening, and you do that, and I appreciate that. And I know that you do what you can to let your neighbors and your community know what's going on. So I'm really grateful for that.
Thank
What
you. Yeah, I don't like, I'll be honest, I don't like staying engaged, but
I
it's
know.
not my favorite, but I don't have any other, they say if you don't, if you don't vote, don't complain. I say if you aren't engaged, then don't complain. And, it's a responsibility that we have as citizens. So thank you for that. But I'm,
I
I'm, I'm
I
good.
listen. I like I said, I get it. I honestly get it, but I do appreciate it. And I was going to ask you, like I said, I know, I understand, like I know, and I get that because you're a person with a heart, and so you want people to make sure that they understand that you're not complaining about your situation, and that you realize still how lucky and how grateful you are for what you have. But
Yeah.
I'm asking because I would like to know, if something were to change tomorrow, what would help your family the most?
Um, right off the top of my head, I don't really even have to think about it, is health insurance that wouldn't be tied to a job. I don't even have to think about that question. That weighs the heaviest on my shoulders, and it has probably since I was old enough to know that one health incident can send you bankrupt. And that is, uh, I see that on a regular basis in the population that I deal with, and just the cost of getting caregivers to help people who I've seen what the expenses can be, and so I don't sort of live my life, blissfully unaware. And so for me, I consider one health event, one thing goes wrong, and we have insurance. Our deductible is enormous, so it's fine. It's, for worst case scenario, but I'm not going to lie. I'll think twice about heading to the doctor because I'm thinking, how much is it going to cost? I'll see if that, sinus infection clears up, and not to be irresponsible, but honestly, I remember a day when health insurance felt a little more accessible. And now, particularly with the job market as it is, that weighs heavy on me. So yes, to answer your question, to know that there was, and I don't mean a ridiculously hard safety net type of thing where you've got to go completely broke and then try to get on Medicaid sort of thing. I mean, like, just reasonable expectation that no matter where you work, you can get health coverage and not fear that the subsidies have been taken away, or, things like that. And I know people who deal with that in a real way, and it's heavy.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Health insurance was is a huge thing for me too. When before I was elected, we were on the marketplace, the ACA, and because of the fact I had to go to the doctor often, we chose a tier that would give me like a PPO, so I wouldn't have to go because the requirement for getting a referral from your primary care physician was so difficult. So we opted to pay a little bit more, but we didn't realize how much more we were going to have to pay, and so we were on the bronze plan, which is not the gold, not the platinum, not the silver. It was the bronze. We were on the top of it because it was a PPO. We were paying like almost $1,900 a month. And that to me, and this was after our daughter was over 26, so taken out of the equation.
Yeah.
And I just could not believe it. And, I have a friend who's from Canada and she lives here now. And she's like, trying to explain the American healthcare system to my mother is hilarious because she just doesn't understand it. She's like, okay, so you have a monthly payment, but then that's it. You don't pay anything else. And she's like, no, when I go to the doctor, I pay a copay. And she's like, but why? What is that
Yeah.
monthly payment for? Like, and then if you need this, like if you need an x-ray, you have to pay for that. And like, it's so like people from other countries simply just do not understand what is happening in our healthcare system. Um,
Yeah.
and like you said, and unfortunately, our health is like everything. It
Mhm.
has such an impact on us, and it's so difficult. And that is one thing that if I could change, I mean, even just in Florida, just opening up and expanding Medicaid would make a difference. Like even that one thing is not as reformative as it could be, not as transformational as it could be, would make such a huge difference to people.
Yeah.
And yet we are like 12 years beyond that happening, and it still hasn't happened. And it doesn't seem like there's any appetite for discussion with members of the majority party. And it's so frustrating when you meet so many people who are dealing with healthcare costs. And
Yeah.
like you said, and they're trying to find a job so that their healthcare, at least they'll have something. And that should just not have to be. So
And
it's
you compound that with you're already dealing with a health issue, and then on top of that,
right,
the stress and the fighting it like is just to me we in this country that is rich enough to do what we do that shouldn't be, and I don't understand why that isn't the top of people's minds, because to me it's always been, it's just one thing goes wrong, the job gets lost, and then you're done, and that's not, it shouldn't be that way. That's not, it doesn't benefit anyone, doesn't
right,
benefit the society as a whole. It doesn't benefit you or I, even though we've got money and we can handle things. It doesn't benefit that people are using the emergency room as primary care. Um,
right.
it's just so it's terribly inefficient, even if we weren't to think about it on sort of an empathetic type of plane. Just it's horribly inefficient, and yeah,
And like you said, it would make such a difference to so many people, especially right now when people are, economies, they go up and they go down and all these things happen and people are forced to kind of deal with it. And it would be nice if to know that one thing is covered, that no matter what you're trying to scrimp on this month or whatever you're trying to forego this month, at the very least, if you needed to go see the doctor, that would be taken care of. And I think for a lot of people, that is part of like what they're trying to juggle in the midst of trying to figure out each gas. Do I go out to eat? Do I do this? Is also, like you said, do I go to the doctor? Do I wait to see if this clears up? And those are those that I don't feel like those are decisions that, choices people should have to be forced to make. So
mm-hmm.
I know that these are really heavy topics that we were talking about. And I know, for ourselves, what you're dealing with, also just outside, also looking at the world around you and also feeling a lot of empathy for what's happening. Despite all that, what keeps you going?
That's a good question. I think that I can make a difference, and I do know that I am being what I can be in the world. So I have a sense that I can do what I can do, but I always have the either the devil and the angel on the shoulder of, yes, I'm hopeful and I can do what I can do, but I always have that voice going, this is overwhelming and I'm so angry. So I'm I'm both things. I'm doing what I can, but it never removes the frustration and the feeling that it shouldn't be this way, and how do we fix it?
I hear that. I hear that. And I think, yeah, I can relate. I can really, really relate. Well, I wanted to thank you so much, Catherine, for, coming on here because I want I want your story, families like yours, to feel comfortable talking about what's going on and understand that, yeah, like I get there's still a lot of privilege and we're in the space that you're in, but how it's impacting everyone around us. And also the fact that there are families that are making choices they've never had to make before. And that is unfortunately, like you said, due to what's happening on the federal level. As you said, this is not something that is happening because the globe is dealing with a catastrophe like COVID.
Right.
It's happening because of choices that those in power are making and the impact it's having on people everywhere.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you joining me for that. And I encourage other people to share their stories as well, to reach out to their elected officials and let them know, even if they feel like I don't want, this isn't a sad story. This isn't I'm not pulling out my violin, but elected officials should know that families are grappling with things that they didn't have to grapple with before. So I encourage everybody to share their stories, and I'm definitely thankful to you for sharing yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Rita. I appreciate it.